Hands-free, totally free. We know the negative effects of talking and texting while driving. What if you couldn't use the phone at all in your car? That might happen. Opening the book on Facebook, it's become part of our lives, but now a new movie sheds some light on how Facebook got started. We'll tell you how that'll affect you. Plus, it's a magical little pill, or so I'm told. Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. Some people think erectile dysfunction commercials are too hot for primetime TV. Have you ever turned on primetime TV? All the stories people are talking about and everything you need to know right now on The Filter. Hello again off the top. The Filter forefront, our top 4 of the day, including, should kids know how to treat erectile dysfunction? But we'll begin with this. What would you do if you learned that your 14-year-old daughter had sex with her 15-year-old boyfriend who happens to be your neighbor? As a parent, how would you react? Now, let me add, this was consensual. Still in all, how would you react? The stepfather of the girl in question is a San Jose police officer. Here's cell phone video of what happened. He put on his uniform, went over to the boy's house, took him into the garage, and handcuffed him. Basically, fake arrested him. It's hard to understand, so some of the dialogue has captions.
Are you aware that that girl is even old enough to remember how to take care of herself when she has her womanly thing every month? You make it sick, please. Both of you guys. If I see you anywhere near Idaho, anywhere near my daughter, do you believe me this time?
After doing a pretty good job of scaring the boy, the officer uncuffed him and told him it better never happen again. The boy's parents were dumbfounded. They thought he was arresting their son. Now, to be fair, the officer also gave his stepdaughter a pretend trip to juvenile hall. She got the message. Our contributors tonight, Emmy Award-winning journalist David Reese and actress and social activist Debra Wilson. Our pictures are furnished by Skype. Now, both the boy's family and the police officer now have attorneys. David, I'm going to start with you here, and here's your question. Was this a concerned father trying to scare an irresponsible teen straight, or an angry policeman abusing his badge?
Well, both, actually, I think. Here's the thing. I think anybody who's a parent in that situation would probably be not very happy with that young man. However, going to his house in your uniform and with your gun, I presume, and with your handcuffs and handcuffing him, I mean, the kid fainted almost. He collapsed out of sheer fear. Okay, so, I mean, clearly this probably had the desired impact. The problem is you just can't do that when you're a police officer. I mean, it's one of those unspoken things. You kind of know you're not supposed to mess around with girls whose dads are cops. At least I did when I was in school. But you don't go, you don't roll up to the kid's house in your uniform with your gun and your billy club and handcuff him. I mean, that's just, I'm sorry, it's going a little too far. Do I think the guy should be fired for it? No, but do I think he should be disciplined? Yes, I do.
What do you think, Deb?
I am so happy this cop did this. I am sick of living in a society in the United States in which we are pretentiously prudish about things. These things happen, and I think this was not an abuse of power. I think when we have to look at phrases like an abuse of power, we have to really sit down as adults and be real about this, David? What is a real abuse of power? I think if anything else, I think the two correlated very easily and very well together. This was like peanut butter and jelly, and I smile at the concept of this happening because that kid
What
was
if that was your kid, though? How would you feel if that cop rolled up to your house?
Right, that's the point.
Let me finish.
But Deb,
that kid was scared, silly, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but
and
how
so
would you...
was his stepdaughter. Bottom line, it wasn't an abuse of power. It was a combination of a father or a stepfather who was concerned and at the same time knowing that he was an authority figure could use his authority this way. Now,
yeah, but how would you feel? Deb, wait a minute, Deb.
No.
Wait. Deb,
you
wait.
know what? At
Deb,
this point,
Deb,
we're not talking legalities except when we're going to court.
Deb.
Deb what?
Deb, how would you feel?
Deb what?
How would you feel if a police officer rolled up to your house and handcuffed your son like that?
It wouldn't bother me. Obviously, it wouldn't bother me if I'm agreeing with this cop, and I'll tell you why.
It wouldn't bother you.
First of all, for two reasons. Don't ask me to answer the question and then not look for an answer.
I'll give you 15 seconds. Go ahead.
It wouldn't bother me, number one, because first of all, my kid wouldn't have done that in the first place. I raised my children right, and I've raised a number of at-risk youth as well. Number one. And number two, if my kid, and I obviously could not handle my child enough that he was going out having sex at the age of 15 and a cop did that just to scare him, I would thank him.
All right, well, I think everybody's going to agree to disagree here. Let's move on. In the state of California, it's against the law to text while driving. That law went into effect 19 months ago. According to AAA, the law has been ineffective, and the number of people texting while driving has actually doubled. It's also against the law to hold a cell phone, as you know, and talk while driving. That law has had little effect as well. There was a proposal in California to ban all cell phone use behind the wheel, even hands-free. You can't talk on your phone. National Safety Council supports that idea, but the Governor's Highway Safety Association set that proposal aside. That particular group has a better idea of the political climate. They're feeling people don't care about the hands-free law. What would make them stop talking, period? Banning all cell phone conversations while behind the wheel. For safety's sake, it's a good idea. But in reality, is it a good idea, Deb?
I actually think it is a good idea because, you know what, unfortunately, you have to go too far in society, especially in California. People are disregarding the law because they don't care. They're selfish, they're thoughtless, they're inconsiderate, and they have a vapid experience in their car to get from one place to the next. As far as they're concerned, it's the same as being in their living room. They're inconsiderate, unconscientious of others. It's bad enough they don't even use their turn signals and they cross in front of people. Unfortunately, we live in a society in California where people are so insecure and lost that they're constantly, I mean, let's think about it. We had to create a phrase where people are constantly doing other things that we call multitasking when all they're doing is being distracted. But as long as a group consensus says that there is such a phrase that multitasks, no one is ever going to call it for what it really is, which is no more than a distraction, and the emperor has no clothes on. It should be taken away completely. I don't do it. Why? Because no call is necessary in order to put not only my life in jeopardy, but someone else's as well.
Dave, what do you think? Is that realistic, just to ban people from talking, period, while they're driving?
No, I don't think it's realistic, but I actually agree with Deb about this because I think talking on the phone is a kind of akin to drunk driving. I think people know they shouldn't do it. I think consciously they know they shouldn't do it, but I think it's a convenience factor. And let's face it, people who go out and get busted for drunk driving probably never think it'll happen to them because they think, oh, I'll just scoot home, or, I don't have the money for a cab, or it's too inconvenient, or I've only had a couple. And we all know that that's just not how it works. You drink and drive and you're dangerous on the road. It's the same thing with a phone conversation. The truth is it's become such a matter of convenience, and it's been so ingrained in our culture now. To be honest with you, I can't imagine going somewhere and not having a phone conversation. That's when I get some of my most productive phone calls done. But is it a good idea? No. I mean, it really isn't, especially if you're having a heated phone call with somebody. You're not paying attention to what where you're going or what you're driving. You're talking to, you're paying attention to your phone call, and that's not a good idea. So I actually agree, but would it fly? No, never fly.
No, I don't think it would fly either, and I think it would be very difficult to enforce. Now, we're talking about communication. On the subject of communication, the Obama administration developing plans that would require all internet-based devices, such as encrypted BlackBerry email, Facebook, and Skype, to be capable of complying with federal wiretap orders. This would require communication service providers to be technically capable intercepting and decrypting messages. Why are they thinking about this? National security officials and federal law enforcement argue their ability to eavesdrop on terror suspects is increasingly going dark in today's world. More communication takes place via internet services rather than by traditional telephone. As you can imagine, this raises serious privacy concerns. On the other hand, the government believes it's a way to help control terrorism. David, what do you think?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm surprised we're even having this conversation. I can't believe some of these technologies don't already exist, that they can track this kind of stuff. And, look, here's the thing. It's all in how you use it. The fact that they want to be able to track it, I do not have a problem with it. Just how they go about using it. Do I think they should just be allowed to track our communications, our emails, or anything else for that matter, willy-nilly without a warrant? No, I don't. I think there's privacy concerns there. But do I have a problem with them having the ability to do it when they think they need to? No, I don't. It's just like telephone calls were back, way back when, we had to establish the law, and the law had to catch up with technology, and that's what's happening here. The law is just catching up with technology. If you think that terrorists are going to pick up the phone and yap explicitly about their plans, you're crazy. That's not how it works anymore. They talk in chat rooms on the internet, or they send messages on Facebook, and, so this is just a matter of the law catching up with technology, and I don't have a problem with it as long as it's applied reasonably.
All right, so if it's applied reasonably, you're good to go. Do you think this is a privacy issue, Deb?
No, I agree with David. I think he's absolutely right on this one as well. But the other slippery slope to this is, technologically speaking, how can a society, how can a government actually be able to maintain, how can a government actually be able to make sure and regulate the technology? The technology is so out of control, it's moving faster that the government is trying to keep up with it. How is it ever possible that this can actually go from a concept to a reality, even though it's a law, or even though it's a possible impending law? It still follows this really complex idea, really complex theory, really complex philosophy of whether or not the government is even capable of doing it, knowing that technology is changing faster and faster every day.
I think that's a fair statement to make, but I think to David's point, look, if the government wants to protect you and try to seek out terrorists, if applied properly and they have the technology, it's probably not a bad idea.
But that's a lot. That's a huge slippery slope. That's a lot that you're talking about. There's there. And with a small side dish that's warmed up of fear-mongering. Just a little.
All right.
I'm sorry, honey.
A side entree.
I'm in Sherman Oaks and it's 107.
All right. Got to go to the last one. Let's go. For years, erectile dysfunction was not something men wanted to talk about. A personal issue. Oftentimes caused a great deal of embarrassment. That was then, and this is now. Well, today men aren't proud of the fact they may have the problem, but there are remedies, Viagra, Cialis, to name a few. Those two drugs have changed men's lives, and there are commercials running for them at all hours. Is it a good idea for kids to see those ads? The American Academy of Pediatricians says no. They believe the ads convey, if you aren't having sex, there is something wrong with you, since you can call a doctor to write a prescription. They'd like all the ads banned before 10 p.m. Every generation makes the claim that kids grow up a lot faster than they used to. Should there be regulations on when these ads should run, Debra?
No. You know what? Every adult would say that. Every organization says that. Every organization that wants to advocate for children might say that, but only adults are saying that. Children aren't thinking that. They don't have that type of psychology, and you know what? They don't really care. We're talking about a society. We get our information from sound bites to begin with. Kids aren't paying attention to those commercials enough. They don't care. It doesn't capture them as far as their imagination is concerned. They're flipping the channels anyway through commercials like most of us adults are. And if that's the case, I would personally not only be offended by Cialis, quite frankly, if I were a parent, I'd be more offended about all of these commercials that abuse the pharmaceutical companies that abuse us by putting them on, making it seem like this is a wonder pill for anything and everything, knowing that there are 1,000,001 causes to other problems and situations. That's what makes it really bad. All of it is offensive, not simply because it's Cialis, but because we've been being bombarded by pharmaceutical companies to cure one thing and destroy 1,000,000 others in us.
What do you think, Dan?
I think Debra has a really good point there. I mean, I by the way, agree that I think it's ridiculous. I mean, good God. We advertise beer, and are we teaching kids then that the only way to have fun is to have a six-pack? I mean, you can make all sorts of crazy extrapolations with that, but I think Debra has a really, really good point about this, and that is that what I wonder if we're really teaching our kids with these ads is, hey, there's a pill for everything. So if you have any type of problem, just trot into your doctor and tell him what your ailment is, and he'll write you a prescription for it. I think that's actually the issue here, and that's more dangerous. And that doesn't just appeal to kids. That's to everybody. We as a society now have a prescription for everything. And, it's not a very good thing. You talk to any addiction specialist, and they'll tell you that's the danger, is that we are training ourselves to believe that you can fix anything with a pill. And I think that's a problem. But do I think Cialis ads are going to send our kids straight to hell? No.
All right. Well done tonight, you guys. Really appreciate it. Spirited conversation. David, thank you. I'll talk to you again soon.
Sorry, it's 107 in Sherman Oaks, baby.
And she is fired up.
Well done.